Hi, everyone. My name is Kirk Bachman, and welcome back to The Ultimate Dish. Today, I'm speaking with Matty Edgell, the 28-year-old winner of the latest season of the Great British Bake Off on Netflix. Matty's journey to triumph was nothing short of extraordinary. Hailed as the underdog and wild card of the 14th series, he captivated audiences with his humble demeanor and remarkable baking skills, ultimately stealing the spotlight with his well-deserved victory. But Matty's love for baking extends far beyond the competition stage. It's been a lifelong passion that started in his kitchen. From a young age, he's been an enthusiastic home baker, balancing his love for pastry with his other passion, and that would be sports. During his university days at Anglia Ruskin University in Cambridge, Matty pursued his interest in sports, studying sports coaching and physical education. Despite his academic pursuits, his love for baking remained unwavering. Today, Matty channels his passion into his role as a PE and science teacher in Peterborough, all the while still enjoying a game of football for fun with the stand ground sports team. When he's not on the football field, you'll find Matty whipping up mouthwatering creations for his lucky friends and family, documenting his baking adventures on social media for all to enjoy. So get ready to indulge your senses as we uncover the sweet secrets behind GBB, explore the reality of competing on TV's most beloved baking show, and so much more. And there he is. Good morning or good evening. How are you, Matty?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Set the stage a little bit. What time in the evening is it for you over
Uh,
there?
5:30, I think. 20,
5 past
20
five.
to
Oh,
6.
it's not so
Yeah,
bad.
20 to 6. No, it's all right. It's still light as well. That's
It's
nice.
still light. That's perfect. We were joking earlier, so I'm gonna apologize in advance. My wife seems to think that whenever I have a conversation with someone that has any kind of accent, whether it's British or French, I start to talk in that same accent. So if I call you Matty at any point today, just ignore me. Ignore me. Oh my!
No
Hey,
worries.
we are so absolutely appreciative of your time. It's been a whirlwind for you. It's lovely to speak with you. Before we kick off, I have to ask, what's for dinner today? It's a cliche, but I think everyone wants to know, like, what's for dessert tonight?
Dessert. I think I'm just going to have a yogurt tonight. That's really boring, isn't it?
Really, that's it?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my God,
Yeah.
lie
God,
to
what
me.
a letdown.
Well, we're gonna spend all kinds of time. Set the stage a little bit. Are you um, off to, or did you today play on the pitch, as they say? Are you playing soccer or football every single day? How much time do you spend
No,
in the kitchen?
nah. So I've been teaching today. So I've literally just got back from work. We had rugby practice after school. So I've just got back from doing that. So that's the closest to a football pitch I've got today is a rugby one.
Oh my goodness. What time does school start in the morning? I'm just curious.
uh 25 past 8, and then they go till 10 past 3.
Okay, and your students are they high school? Are they middle school,
I
elementary?
don't I, I don't know. I never really know where they fit into the American school system, but they're 11 till 18 at my school.
Oh, okay. So you've got elementary, which kind of trickles into middle school and high school. So you've got a wide range there, right? Wow.
Yeah, I guess so.
And and you're teaching PE as well as a science course, or
So it was, yeah. I used to teach science as well. This year, my timetable was just PE, so I'm just on PE, which is cool.
that sounds like a great day. It
Yeah,
has
not
to
bad,
be.
is
I
it?
love it. I love it. Well, we're going to spend a lot of time diving into the British Bake Off, but this is really about you, right? This is about, we'll go all the way back to little Matty in the kitchen if we could. And
Yeah,
I've read online that you've always been viewed as the family's designated baker with a running list of cake requests for celebrations that were in the future, which is just absolutely amazing. Can you talk to us a little bit about, when did Matty start using that KitchenAid, and what inspired you to bake? We have a lot of students that'll listen, to the show. So I'm just really curious about your inspiration.
my inspiration. When it kind of just happens, and then you get asked like, where did it all start, and you can't really put your finger on it. I think I have to. I have to go with my nan on where it all started. So she, and a lot of the stories that I know about my nan aren't from my living memory because she passed away when I was 5. So there's like pictures that I associate a memory to, and I hope that that memory is a legitimate memory rather than something you kind of have made up almost in the best way possible. But
Yeah.
I have to associate my love for baking and my where it all began with her. She used to make people's wedding cakes, only ever as a hobby, never as a baker as such. But I know, and I've heard stories. My dad talks about different stories about the type of cakes that she made. But obviously, back when she was doing it, pictures weren't all that easy to come by. So a lot of what I imagine my nan to make are a memory or like something that I've made up almost in my head. But then there are a couple of pictures that I have, one of which is like the teddy bear cake stands out, and the picture is of my nan next to me and me like almost I was so joyful with this teddy bear cake. I don't know what age it would have been. I think probably 3 or 4. And that's the when I think of my nan, I think of that cake, I guess. And yeah, although she kind of never really, I shouldn't think she ever saw me in the kitchen, certainly never making much, probably like the old fairy cakes that you used to make when you was younger. But she's who I attribute my passion for baking and probably food as well. It all stems from her, I'd say.
No, I love that. I love that. Many memories around food are associated with, you know, special people in your lives. I'm curious, do you recall what the teddy bear was for? Was that for you? Was it a birthday teddy bear cake or for someone else?
It was a birthday cake for me, yeah. So
Yeah.
it was like quite a cartoon looking teddy and like chocolate and like everything that you want when you're 3 or 4 years old in a cake. It was that.
No, I love it. I love it. I don't know. You probably aren't aware. I grew up in a similar way with my father. He came over from Germany in the 60s, and we had a bakery in Chicago, and I don't even remember what the holidays were, but I just remember in those days cakes were fantastic, right? I could remember spaceship cakes and football cakes and baseball cakes and things that just stood out in my memory. I'm curious from your perspective, back then, cakes were very elaborate. They spent a lot of time. I remember all the bakers would be over at my home on Mondays when the bakery was closed, and they would go in the basement with my father and spend hours. Who knows all that they were doing down there, but most of the time they were making marzipan roses for the following week, right? So these cakes, these wedding cakes, these celebration cakes, they were all adorned with lots of whipped cream and lots of roses that were made in the basement, the week before. Today, in our kitchens, we do a lot of small cakes, celebration cakes. I see a lot of fresh flowers on cakes. I see just simple designs, right? Nothing really ornate. What is your perspective on that, particularly, competing? What would you consider to be contemporary in the world of cake making today?
Is that in terms of like my personal preference?
Well, your preference and what you believe is popular today.
I think going from like what I saw in the tent and what I see in kind of what I watch, and I watch a lot of like patisserie videos and people that really know what they're doing. Not me, people that really know what they're doing, do their thing, and a lot of it is quite kind of like clean cut, isn't it? So like there is a lot less of like the real. There's still the intricacy, and there's still the precision, but it's almost like a less is more approach, and they allow what those few things that they do, and they're like 100% at it. But in terms of, I wouldn't say that it looks any better or any worse than what the cake that you was kind of alluding to, or the styles back then. I guess is probably just like more of a modern interpretation of that thing. It's probably evolved from that, hasn't it? Because the skill is still the same, and
Oh,
they're just
absolutely. Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
slightly different way.
Yeah, that's great perspective. Simplicity is the key word there. We see a lot of that. People looking for just, something um just approachable, super, super simple, not too complicated. But you're right, the skill is still sophisticated, right? How would
Yeah.
you, how would, Maddie, how would you describe your baking style specifically? Um, and has it changed over time? You're still incredibly young, so I'm curious how it's changed, through competition and such.
I mean, when I look back at the cakes, like it's by nowhere. I'd love for it to be better, and I think that the only way you can get better is to do it more, isn't it? So it gets better each time I do it. It's still relatively rustic, but I think that's because I know where my strengths are and I know where my weaknesses are. So throughout Bake Off, you didn't necessarily have the opportunity to get it wrong too many times. So I had to play to my strengths, which was flavors, and keep it quite rustic, quite simple. So the intricacy plus the time pressure um, meant that I would kind of steer clear from the decoration that meant it looked quite intricate and lots of detail. But yeah, when I look back at pictures of cakes that I made, like even just like 2, 3 years ago, the difference to what I'm producing now, and that's not because I am better because I practiced more, but um, I'm more aware of like simple techniques, like make sure that the cake when you're coating it is really cold, and then pop it back in the freezer, and then go again with a smaller layer. Don't try and do it all at once, which is what I was trying to do. And also the tools that I have now, I've got through Bake Off, you acquire so many different things that you think I'm never going to use these again, and then out it comes. So yeah, I have improved an awful lot.
No, I love that. I imagine a lot of your popularity is around, your genuine approach, your honesty, and related to that, it seems like you've always sort of viewed baking as a hobby, as a passion. I mean, you're still fully employed as a physical instruction teacher. That's your primary career. Did you ever, or do you ever consider baking as a professional career for yourself? Even when you were younger, did you think I could do this?
I've always had a love for food, a love for cooking. I mean, I love to eat it. So by that kind of interest of like eating different things and as like lovely food, you kind of have the interest of how to make it as well. They kind of come hand in hand. So I once, when I was about in England, you pick like what we call our options. So the exam subjects that you're going to do. I think I chose them when I was like 11 or 12, and I was contemplating doing the food option that we have um, because I wanted to be a chef, and then I never went with it. I decided to go down the sport route. So at that point, I thought, no, I'll never be anything kind of baker or chef wise. There's no like history of that as an actual occupation in the family. Obviously, Nan done a little bit, but nothing properly. So I never really anticipated. And then I would never have put myself on Bake Off. So this is all like the world of unknown, and like it's just bizarre. As good as it is, it's so bizarre.
Oh, I love it. Well, talk us through um, that decision to pursue your love of sports, particularly football, and then to eventually sort of give back by becoming a teacher. How did that all come about?
I think I'm not academic. I never have been, never will be naturally academic. It never came easy to me. I've always been quite a kinesthetic learner as well, which is probably where the interest from baking comes along, because you can talk to someone about how to bake till they're blue in the face, but they've got to go and give it a go, and giving it a go involves you actually doing it, which is probably where I found that through that process of trial and error and that natural kind of like desire to know why it didn't necessarily go right, even though you followed the recipe. That it's kind of similar to sport in that way. You play, you get better by doing it. So I think because I'm not naturally academic, which is weird because I'm a teacher, but not naturally academic, I saw the fun that my PE teachers were having, and I guess I was inspired by them. So I thought actually this looks like fun. I'll give that a go as a profession. So that's kind of how I ended up wanting to be a teacher. It didn't quite materialize as it could have done. So I finished uni, and then for whatever reason, didn't get on to doing the next stage, which is doing something they call a PGCE, which is where you train to be a teacher. It didn't quite happen straight out of uni. So I ended up working in an office for 2 years. Weird job selling. I sold drains for a year.
Okay.
So I know a lot of, like, pub quizzes on drains. I'm your man. I know random stuff about that. And then we went to, I ended up selling aerospace metal, and I thought, I can't do this. I just, it weren't for me. And then I ended up giving teaching a go. I thought, it's now or never. I was at the position, I was still living at home. So financially, my parents allowed me to be able to afford it. They said, you don't have to worry about rent, because it was free. That year, I didn't get paid. I was just back to being a student. And it was the best thing that I've ever done. So yeah, actually pursuing it and becoming a teacher was, yeah, that's what I wanted to do, wanted to be. And luckily I had the support around me to enable that to become what it is now. And then all of a sudden Bake Off arrived, and that was like another curveball to life, but a good one.
It's a wonderful story. I'm curious, you mentioned being a kinesthetic learner. The majority of our students are the exact same. They want to learn by someone showing them how to do it, and then they have the opportunity to replicate that. I'm curious, did your friends in college know that you, or even before that, know that you were an avid baker? Did you keep this a secret?
Yeah, 100%. Like, so genuinely, the first inkling that any of my friends got was that I was into baking was, we had an engagement party. So this would have been the summer of 2021.
Okay.
So we had an engagement party, and I made a cake, and I made some cookies and some brownies, and someone asked where we bought the cake. And that was kind of, and it wasn't said to me. I overheard it. It was asked to Lara, who's my fiance. So someone asked her, and I heard that question, and that was like a bit of a penny drop moment, that maybe I'm not that bad, because you've got nothing to compare it against, have you? You just see how you get better, and everyone tells you it's nice, but you've just made them a cake. They're not going to tell it's horrible, are they? Yeah. You don't know anyway, because these are close family that I'm giving it to. So, yeah, that's kind of, that was their first inkling, and then nothing more. There was no other situation where they could have tried, and then all of a sudden I'm announced as being on Bake Off.
It's almost better, very serendipitous, right? Cat's out of the bag. Oh my gosh! And then the next thing, you're on the Bake Off. I'm curious. I'm obsessed with sports as well. All my kids, whether it's gymnastics or baseball or American football, all of that. I'm curious, with your regimen, your discipline, your commitment to sports and competing more than anything. Did that help you on the stage when you competed in GBB?
100% it did, yeah. And I didn't realize quite how impactful playing sport my whole life, being in competitive situations, winning, losing, things not going your way, even though you've prepared for it to go a certain way. I didn't realize how impactful that is just in helping you in kind of like life. Because I was in this situation where all of a sudden, like, someone's going home. So there is going to be someone that goes home, and that person doesn't necessarily, they might not want, well, no one wants to go home, but they've worked as hard as everyone else to get to that position and to get to that week each week. And it's fine margins a lot of the time as to between at least 2 or 3 people, because of how good everyone is in there. There's not really much to separate, unless someone has a really unfortunate week, which I don't think happened really in my season. So and also the criticism, and Paul and Prue will be honest, if they don't meet their standards, they'll tell you in no uncertain words. But what you don't necessarily see in the edit is that the judging goes on about 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly the showstopper one, and you feel so vulnerable, because you've got to walk it to them, take a couple of steps back, and then you're like, right, hit me with it. How bad is it this week? And they give you all of the criticism, but they're very constructive with it, and you don't necessarily see that when they trim it down into a 60-minute show. They'll tell you what wasn't good, and then the next sentence, which is what I tried to hang on to, and I think that comes from like a competitive background where you want to improve, you want to prove them wrong for the next time. and also you used to being told kind of as a sportsman or someone who plays sport, like by your coach or your manager, how to improve, right? So I was hanging on to that second sentence where they say this wasn't this good, or this could be improved, and this is how you can do it.
As a sports person or a baker or a chef, or sometimes going in, perhaps they're gonna see that this wasn't what I wanted it to be. Maybe they won't notice,
Yeah,
maybe they will, but you probably get to a point where you're prepared for that, right? Um, and again, to your point, I don't think people ever really appreciate the fact that everything gets edited down, right? And they don't see the look on your face or the feeling rushing through your body in case there is something that's a little like off-putting, right? And how do you hide that, or do you have to?
the worst one. So I remember that when you're pretty happy with it, and when you're not happy with it. And generally, if you're not happy with it, they're not going to be happy with it either,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
you're your own worst critic. So if you know in yourself if it went to plan, and you know in yourself if that represents what you wanted it to represent on that bake. The hard one, and it happened twice. It happened on both of them were technical. So that middle one where you don't know what you're baking, you don't know what you've got to do, and you don't really have much of a recipe to guide you through it either. So if you don't know what the outcome's supposed to look like, you're in a bit of trouble right from the off. But
Yeah,
there was two
yeah.
bakes. The first one was on bread week, and it was a Devonshire split. I'd never heard of this thing. It was almost like is it a oh, I'm going to say this wrong. Is it a Mavarotti? The Italian bake where it's a bun
Oh
and
yeah,
it's
yeah,
filled
yeah,
with
yeah,
cream.
yeah, yeah,
Is it
yeah.
pronounced
Very
like
similar.
Mavarotti?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's similar to that. And I thought, do you know what? That don't look too bad. Paul took one look at it. He hadn't even tried it because that's underproved that I'm great. What do I know? And then the next one was we had to make, it was a petivier.
Okay.
So it was sliced potatoes, a dauphinoise petivier. Never heard of one of them either, but it was lovely. But I looked at it and I thought that there looks good. And from the outside, it looked really good. And then he cut it open. He was like, "Yeah, potatoes are a little bit too al dente." He didn't call them that. He called them raw. But
Yeah.
al dente sounds better, don't it? So he goes, "Yeah, they're a bit raw, and there's not enough flake on the pastry." And I thought, again, what do I know?
Oh my goodness. Well, but it's learning. You're learning every step of the way, right? It's um I'd love to talk a little bit more about GBB. Before we do that, my son who is as in love with sports as I am, he needs to know what your team is. Who's your team? And in terms of
I'm a
folks.
West Ham fan. A West Ham fan.
Okay, okay, okay.
I shouldn't think it. Has he heard of him? I
I,
shouldn't think he has.
I'm sure he's we're German, so
Okay.
he's a Bayern, München fan, big time. But he pays attention to all of it, so he'll he'll be what's the Hulu series Ted Lasso. I mean, he's
Oh,
he's
okay.
he's watched
Yeah,
it 20 times. He's watched it
yeah.
20 times, right? Absolutely. I'm a terrible parent because it's not always appropriate, but that's okay. He loves it. But let's dive into the Great British Bake Off. Did you so tell me how who applied for you? It doesn't seem like you did that on your own.
No, so my fiance Lara applied for me.
She did.
Um,
Okay. Okay.
yeah, so I didn't know that it was happening until it was happening. So I knew that the application was going in before it was sent. It was getting sent regardless. Um, but yeah, so she originally wanted to apply for the year before so last year's series, not
And you
mine.
were aware,
Um,
you knew that she was up to this? Oh, you
no,
weren't.
no, no, I
Okay.
have no idea. The only thing that stopped her was part of your application, because you can say that you bake anything and you do anything, can't you? But part of your application is to evidence it with pictures of you baking. So
Okay.
obviously, I don't take pictures of
Photos. Yeah.
myself at
Yeah.
all, let
Yeah.
alone of me baking. No one knew that I baked. So eventually, the reason that I caught her is because she's getting less and less discreet with taking pictures whilst I'm baking, to the point where she's like starting to get me to like pose with things. I'm like, what is this about? Like, where are you going with these pictures? So I never see them again. And then she fessed. And then I said, no, you're absolutely not doing that. And she said, I absolutely am. What have you got to lose? And I couldn't answer.
Yeah,
I've got
yeah,
nothing to
yeah.
lose. And genuinely in my mind, every stage of the application process, when I said I'm not doing it, and Lara said, yes, you are, what have you got to lose? And I still couldn't think of a reason. I thought, I'm not going to get through anyway. So I went with it. And then I got through, and then I got through, and then I got on. And then I'm like, oh, God, what have I done?
So what's that feeling like, that reality? Like, wow, do you get to a place where, like you said, I'm not going to get on. It's not going to happen, but then it does.
Yeah.
Then your confidence starts to build. Maybe the anxiety starts to rise. What do you tell? I mean, you had to leave school for a while, right? Did you keep it a secret from the students as well?
Yeah. So like every stage comes with an NDA. So even if you wanted to tell people,
You
you're not
couldn't.
allowed to. Yeah. So
Yeah,
the
yeah.
people that knew, my head of department, so my boss knew, he knew because I think throughout the whole 10 weeks of filming, I needed a total of 4 days off. So it didn't quite correlate with the weekends on 4 occasions. The
Okay,
first one
okay.
was the week one. So you go up the Thursday night. We filmed Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and that was a one-off just for the first week, so we could get some of the press bits done. Um, and then there was 2 other weekends, I think, where it didn't quite match Saturday, Sunday. But so because of that, my boss knew because he needed to sign it off. But he was a reference, so you need references as well. So he was a reference, and then my head teacher, he knew as well, but he didn't know what stage I got to
Okay. Okay.
because it stopped needing time off of work. He wasn't able to guess past probably week 4, week 3, when it stopped being in the week or on the weekday.
So there's this feeling at first you're like, what have I got to lose? I'm going to go along with this. It's funny. Then you get through. The reality sets in. Is it like I got this, or I'm even more nervous, or what have I done?
What have I done is more
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
what
yeah,
I
yeah,
was thinking.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because no one could prep you for the cameras, right?
No.
Um, yeah, and I imagine there's some staging, there's some drama that they're looking for, and all of that. So, are you able to? And if you can't, I understand. Can you discuss some of the challenges, even personal challenges that you had that maybe were unexpected as it all began to unfold?
The hardest part is the fact that you really don't know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah.
And they prep you for saying that the days are long. Like when you're filming, the days are long. You have to go up the night before, irrespective of what day it's being filmed. So generally, I was up on a Friday night. So I'd leave work, I'd come home, I'd pick up the bag that I packed on the Thursday, and then I'd drive straight there because it's about 2.5 hours. We filmed 2.5 hours away from where I live. So I'd be up on up Friday night. Friday night was always nice. Everyone's full of nerves, but you get to no one's done well. No one's more importantly, no one's done bad yet because we haven't had the chance to. So we're all full of like nervous energy. But the weekend hasn't like knocked anyone down yet. So we're all in good spirits. Although we might not have had the best week of practice or whatever, generally people are happy to see each other. So it's nice. But then you're in the tent for 7 in the morning. So we're filming not from 7, probably you don't actually know the time because they didn't have a watch and there's no clocks anywhere and they take your phone off you as soon as you get in. So the first thing you do is give your phone in so you can't contact anyone or check the time. But yeah, we're in the tent for 7. We get picked up at 6:45 in the morning and we're probably pulling back into the hotel at about 6:30, 6:45. And they told us that that was the case. But I didn't believe them. I don't know why. I thought, no way can it take. And I've seen the show. It's an hour long. There's no way can it take 24 hours worth of filming in 2 days. I was wrong. It's
Yeah.
12 hours. So yeah, that world of unknown was the worst part. And obviously, even after the filming, you still really don't know what's going to happen because you've not seen the edit until anyone else has seen it. You see it at the same time. And then it's like the nerves of like, what are people going to think of me? What mistakes and stupid faces am I going to make and pull? That part there is the hardest bit.
It's clear that you exude this playful thirst for knowledge. It's clear. I mean, you're a teacher, right? You have a desire to learn more. were you able to use some of the, let's call it constructive criticism that you may have received from time to time, to your advantage? Almost like mentally, what kept you in the game? Like your sports background or yeah.
Definitely being competitive, and it's the strangest competition that I've ever been in, and I can't imagine I'll ever be in a competition quite like it again, where genuinely, although you know that someone's got to lose, and when I say lose, someone's got to go home each week and someone's gonna win, you don't want anyone to go home because they've had a bad week. You want, and I said this time and time again once I've done the interviews each week, really, that you just hope that the person that does go home goes home because they've had a good week and everyone else has had a really good week. Whereas in a football match, you want their best player to get injured, don't you? Not nothing serious where they can't, like, maybe a little hamstring tweak or something like that, where they've got to come off. You get rid of their best player, but you don't want that to happen in this competition. So it's so surreal. But definitely like being competitive. And I think that's why I needed so much talking into going to the first week. So even after being told I was on, and then there's like a month between where you're doing all of the prep for your recipes, week 1 to 9. That week before, I was like a roller coaster. One minute I was like really excited, and the next I was like, the thought of doing it just didn't sit right. So Lara was talking me down all the time as to like, you've got to give it a go. But where I was most nervous was I knew that as soon as I turn up for week 1, I'm in it for the long haul. Irrespective of kind of what came my way, my competitiveness would kind of take over, and
Yeah.
it did.
No, I love that. What was there a point that you recall where the challenge that it all changed for you? Like, oh my goodness, I could very well win this.
Week 7, if I remember rightly, weeks 5, 6, and 7 were really tough. They were really tough because mentally I was so far from the start, but I also knew that I didn't want to go home because I wanted to. I'm now in it. I'm in this competition. I want to win. So I was so far from the start, but I was also so far from what I wanted the end to be. And they were really tough. But I remember week 7 was the showstopper. What was the week? I remember we had to make dessert, a meringue bomb.
Oh
And
yeah,
I've never heard of one of these. And I got it to work once out of all of the practice. And with the meringues, you could quickly whip them up. They took like 2 hours to bake, which is where the challenge was at, because you only had 4 hours. So if you don't get it right first time, and you can only do 2 of them in the oven, there's no backup. It either works or it don't. And if it doesn't work, you've got 2 hours to kind of get over the fact that it's not working. But it worked once for me, and that was the Sunday of the showstopper being filmed. So after that, I was like a big sigh of relief. And the next week was party week, and I got a handshake and a 1-star baker. At that point, I thought, okay, I've got enough wind in my sails to get to the final here if I can do well next week, which is only 1 week off. But yeah, that was week 7 was probably the point where I thought, okay, I'm going to hit it hard now. I'm really going to go for it because I'm nearly there.
that's such a great story. So it's just natural for us to talk about some of the, the obstacles, everything comes together with the magic of television, but people can't really appreciate how absolutely trying this is on the soul and the mind, the family, the feet, all of that is, I think you may have just mentioned it, but was there a moment that stands out as perhaps even your proudest moment? Was it with the meringue or was it the ultimate victory?
I think in terms of like proudest moment, if we like, I won't go with the easy option and saying winning it. I think, yeah, I've never even considered the meringue bomb to be like a proud moment, because, and this kind of shows like how, although I'm competitive, I'm also quite harsh on myself, because I never really saw that as like a proud moment, and I guess I should have been more proud in the moment to have kind of got it out when it mattered most.
Yeah,
But then
yeah.
I went on to the fact that I hadn't thought past that initial getting it out, because how I then presented it was just kind of thrown in there, which went against me. But I think probably the sausage roll with the handshake from Paul, and you never like you watch it. And I've always been a fan of Bake Off, and like this handshake becomes a thing of like complete validation. And not until you're in the tent and someone receives one do you realize how big of a thing it is, because the crew, which make, in my opinion, those guys make the show what it is. Like how relaxed they make you feel. Like I can't speak highly enough for everyone that were involved in that side of it. But they're there. Pretty much all of them are there like year on year, and they're all like clapping. You're like, wow, this is a thing, like a real big thing. And then you receive one, and it is just like complete validation of whatever you've just made being absolutely bang on through this handshake. So all of a sudden it's like really sought after, and that's probably, like, excluding the win, that's probably the proudest moment for me.
Oh, that's so poignant. You know, as you were speaking, Matty, I was thinking, we've spent a lot of time on Matty today, but you went through the journey with many others, and I imagine everyone had a different, you know, experience. I've watched a lot of replays on YouTube and such. I imagine you get close. You start to care about these people. You develop relationships. Are you still close today with any of them, all of them?
Yeah, no, we still speak from time to time. I think like the unfortunate thing is kind of like life takes over and we are all dotted around the country, but like trying to get 12 people together at one time is quite challenging. But there's like a WhatsApp group and we still do speak from time to time. But I think everyone kind of like rode this wave together. And they're going to be those friendships where you don't need to speak all the time, but when you do, it will be like you've been speaking forever. And when you do meet up with each other, it'll be like you only saw each other yesterday, sort of thing. It's that kind of like low maintenance but really special friendship that I think all of us have and are bonded by through this experience. But
Yeah,
that
that's
also comes in as a result of kind of like how everyone dealt with the competition. Like when you're kind of on a high, you recognize that, and someone's probably on a low, and you're pulling them up. But the next week, the tables have turned, and they're on the high, and you're on the low, and they're pulling you up. And that's
yeah.
probably where the bonds and the friendships are formed.
That's absolutely lovely. Well said. I was hoping maybe we could talk, you know, some for those who maybe didn't catch the series or the finals. Can you talk a little bit about that final competition? What was the challenge for that very
So
final?
the final was it was quite a good one actually, and it played to my strengths. One with it being cake, and two with it being um, the brief. So you get a recipe brief for the final. We got it midway through the week of the semi-final. So whilst we're probably about Wednesday of the semi-final, we got this brief. Maybe a little bit earlier, but I'm not even looking at that. I've got to get through the semi first. I'm not even looking at it.
Yeah.
Which made the week of the final an interesting one, because I'm trying to think of an idea and develop an idea and make it all at the same time. And it's the
Getting
most
ahead of
important thing I've
yourself.
ever
Yeah,
made.
yeah.
But it was a three-tiered cake inspired by the first thing that you've ever made. So luckily, straight away, like I had an idea, I had a concept. Whereas previous weeks, like, and you can probably tell the weeks where I wasn't really sure on what I needed to produce. It was probably quite reflective of what I ended up producing. But with this one, I knew straight away what I was going to go, what I was going to go for.
When you were presented with that iconic glass plate, what like was it Laura that you was it your student? What did you think about? What rushed through? I imagine a proud moment, right? Did you think
Oh
about
yeah,
Nana? Did you think about Nana? I mean, I just can't even imagine.
I don't. Do you know what? It's such a blur. I don't even know. I remember I was like sifting through the crowd, and I was trying to find Lara, and I was trying to find my family, just to kind of like take it in with them. And I know it probably sounds cliche, and I'm not saying this because it's the sort of thing that people say in this kind of instance, but genuinely, I think every person that's ever been on Bake Off will vouch for this. No matter where you get to, you won't be able to get there without the support network that you have at home. You can become quite self-absorbed, to be honest. Like for 10 weeks, I didn't make dinner. For 10 weeks, Lara made, I always make my lunches like on the Sunday night. And for 10 weeks, that wasn't possible. But I'd come home from Bake Off and Lara had made them. Like it, everyone else kind of like picked up my slack massively. most of all Lara. And so like I wanted to be, although I've done the baking, they've done everything to kind of facilitate me getting the practice in, and that close bond that I have with my family and obviously Lara, that enabled me to get the win, which was why I wanted to find them pretty sharpish.
Oh, it's so appropriate and almost expected that you're so genuine about your appreciation of those around you and sharing the victory, if you will, with so many. And it's such a great message to young chefs who are going to go out into the industry and have to build a team. It's so important that there's, phenomenal people all around you. I just love that. Can we talk a little bit about your next project? I heard a rumor, or maybe it's not a rumor, that you're going to bake your own wedding cake and turn that into something very, very fun. Can you talk about that a little bit? Congratulations, first of all,
Thank you.
on the nuptials. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know I was gonna make it long before like the Bake Off thing was even like a reality. Like we got engaged back in 2021, and so we start doing what you do, like going to like different wedding fairs, and like obviously you've got no idea how much things cost. And we spoke to a couple of cake people, and their like initial quotes were like £500, and I whispered in Lara's ear, I can do it cheaper than that. It might not taste as nice, it might not look as good, but I can do it cheaper than that. And then I had a bit of a 10-week intense course on how to make things look and taste a bit nicer. And all of a sudden, the month is nearly here. So yeah, in a couple of weeks, I'm on Easter holidays. I don't know if you get them in America, but we have 2 weeks off.
Well, we don't have 2 weeks, but we have a bit off. Yeah.
Okay, so I've got a bit of time. I'm gonna practice. I've kind of on Sunday I quickly knocked up the top tier because I've only recently decided what it's going to be, and that's inspired by MasterChef.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
I went to the winner's restaurant. He works in a restaurant called the Camellia in a hotel called South Lodge. And one of the desserts that we had was this olive oil cake. So I took the concept because it was lovely. I've never had one before. So the 6-inch cake, the top tier is going to be, I've run some pistachio, some ground pistachio, and then some chopped pistachio. So it's got a little bit of texture, and a little bit of lemon zest, but I'm going to change it to a little bit of orange zest, and then a little pistachio whipped ganache as the filling. So there's the top tier.
Oh my goodness. I did get a little chill, by the way. That sounds lovely. That sounds amazing. So this is just a few weeks away then.
May the 30th. So it's a few more than a few, but it ain't far off.
My goodness.
It's coming around fast.
Congratulations. That's amazing. Obviously your commitment is to your students and the work that you do every day. I imagine there's a lot of opportunities coming your way after the show. Obviously getting married is the priority and the focus. Is there anything beyond, teaching that you think about where it could just really blow up for you in terms of the baking side of things?
There is, and I think more and more it's kind of like an ever-growing thing in my mind, and I guess that's as a result of like the opportunities that are being presented to me. Is really difficult to not. And obviously I'm fortunate in the sense that I enjoy my job, but I also enjoy this as well. And I think this, and people keep saying it to me, to be fair, teaching's always going to be there. They're never not going to need teachers. You might not be back in the school that you're at the moment, but that is part of the game, isn't it? But it is something that I've got one go at this. I mean, that if the timings are correct, next season's bakers have just been told that they're next season's bakers. So there's already people kind of like that are going to be next year that are going to be me. So I've got one go at it, and I know that I will forever kick myself if I don't give it a good go. So hopefully in the near future we can really go at it.
I love it. How can our listeners keep up with you? I follow you on Instagram. Do you want to?
You do?
Yeah. Oh, it's fun.
Yes.
It's fun. Yeah. You make it easy to watch. And you want to give your Instagram handle? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so it's Matty Edgell. So it's Matty with two T's and a Y, and then Edgell, EDGELL. So yeah, that'd be cool.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, when this goes live, we'll put all of those links and
Oh,
push that
amazing.
out. Tons and tons of students. Speaking of students, any just brief words of advice for those who are inspired for you? You mentioned Master Chef. There's all kinds of inspirational opportunities to watch young people and people in general compete at this level. And young people have dreams. And any advice for anyone who might want to follow a similar path?
Yeah, I think resilience and persistence. Um, I'll even give you an example. Let's say I already spoke about the meringue bomb not working until the day of the showstopper. Um, the final the final signature, so the first bake that you make of the weekend, was choux pastry. It was an eclair, and I couldn't get it to rise. And it turns out, well, you'll be able to tell me if I'm correct here. So I've got these silicon mats, and they've got the eclair mark lined out on them, but they're not perforated metal. So they'd rise, I'd take them out, take them off, and then they'd sink. Usually, I would practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I would have Friday off because I'd then bake Saturday, Sunday. And I decided before I went up, I'm just going to whip up another batch. But through laziness, I couldn't be bothered to go and get another silicon mat out of the cupboard. I just put it on some greaseproof paper and on a metal tray, and they rose and they
And they
stayed.
rose.
So that, I always think about that in terms of the resilience. Had I not have just one more go, I'll give it one more go, and that one more go proved to be decisive, because otherwise I was going to turn up on the final and bake choux pastry that I knew was going to be flat. Although perfectly sized, it was going to be flat 100% because it had been the whole way. So a little bit of resilience not to throw in the towel, and some persistence, and then sift through the criticism to try and find the constructive part. It might not always be delivered in a constructive way, but and also, I guess, find out who you can listen to and who you should listen to, and find out who maybe you can disregard a little bit.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Persistence and resilience. Great, great, great advice. Matty, this has been absolutely so much fun. The name of the show is The Ultimate Dish. We're so honored and proud to have you. But before I let you go, I have to ask, in your mind, what is the ultimate dish?
Oh, it's always something Italian with me. I don't know where to go. I've got three in my head.
I'll take all of them.
So, do you know what I love about Italian food is that it's just like really great ingredients, but there's only ever a few of them, isn't there? And they
Yes,
just let
yes.
them do the work. But
Yeah.
when I went to Italy, when I was young, probably about 14, 15, I had this lasagna, and it was just a vegetarian lasagna. And for me back then, I used to eat meat all the time. Like growing up, it was like we have this saying in America: meat and two veg. Do you have that in America?
Yeah, we do. It's more it's
in
more
England.
profound now than ever before. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like that was kind of like what my parents grew up with. It's almost like what I grew up with. Like we everything had meat on it. So I went to this hotel and I had this lasagna, and it was spinach lasagna sheets, and then just a bechamel sauce. And it was the best thing that I've ever had. It was unbelievable. I was eating it for days, and I didn't realize. I don't think I even realized that there was no meat in there, which was like quite abnormal for me to not be eating a main dish that's got not got meat in it. And I don't know why it's just stuck with me forever. So there's that, but then I also do just like the pizza.
Well, the lasagna is so simple, right?
It is, and
So
it's just good.
like a peasant meal almost, right? And then so when you say pizza, are you talking, New York style pizza or just a pie that you get in Italy that's not sliced?
Yeah, like a Neapolitan pizza. But I
Oh,
love my
perfect.
favorite topping at the moment is nduja. So
Okay.
have you had it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
quite fiery, but like a little goes a long way. But it's just I love it, and when it's with some good quality mozzarella as well, it's
Oh, beautiful. So that's two. What's number
the
three?
dream. The third one is just simple roasted tomatoes with some tagliatelle and prawns.
So we've had over 100 guests on the show. I haven't had a podium like this before, and I love it. I love it. It's
I'm very indecisive as a person, as you can probably tell.
I get the three, but simple.
Yeah,
consistent with
totally.
what you said earlier. Absolutely. Wow, how much fun was this? Thank you for spending some time with us. We wish you at Escoffier so much luck in the future. We'll keep watching. This show will air in a few weeks and it'll go to thousands of students around the country.
Perfect. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for listening to the Ultimate Dish podcast brought to you by Auguste Escoffier School of Culinary Arts. Visit escoffier.edu/podcast, where you'll find any materials mentioned during the podcast, including notes, links, and other resources. You can also browse other episodes and subscribe.